another video on headphones. In this video, I want to have a look at earbuds and how they can help us in a podcast production process. Hi, it's Mike from Casefile Presents. On this channel, I'm releasing videos on podcasting, so if you enjoy the content, you can hit the like button. When working on podcasts, when producing podcasts, I always have the listener in my mind, and I ask myself these questions. When are they listening to these shows? Where? And also, what are they listening to these shows on? Now, these questions and the answers to these questions will guide me in my production process. So let's say I know that majority of the listeners enjoy their podcasts, their shows, in their cars. Then I would make sure that my work, sounds best in a car. However, from various reports, also observing people, I know that majority listens to podcasts via their mobile phones using headphones. Now the question is, what kind of headphones? Again, majority of people does not use some kind of high fidelity headphones. They use simple earbuds. Earbuds are these. So these are the small headphones that go inside of your ear, your AirPod, your Raycons, and so on. Once we establish that, this will make our job easier. Not easy, easier. Because we know where our mix, the final mix, will end up, we can start planning. We can start looking onto our production process. And at least for me, how I work is the goal is to use all this equipment, all these expensive tools and gear to be able to make the final podcast, the episode, the mix, sound decent on these cheap headphones. Now, how do we do that? Well, it's easier said than done. And why is that? Well, because everything will sound better on expensive gear. So when I listen to the mixes, to the work on my studio monitors, the ones behind me, or my mixing headphones, these AKGs, the mix will sound good by default because it's an expensive gear in somewhat acoustically treated environment. But how many people will listen to the show, to my work, in that sort of room with that sort of gear? Well, not many. On top of that, when we think about headphones, every pair sounds different from each other. And especially when we are talking about earbuds. It doesn't matter if it's expensive AirPods or some kind of cheap knockoffs. They will cut, they will boost frequencies, there will be differences in volume levels. It's a mess. Getting your mixes sound decent, it's not as easy a task as you would think. Now this leads to a conundrum. How can we then make sure that our mix, with using all these tools, that our mix sounds the best on each of these headphones? Well, the answer is we can't. At least I cannot. The goal is to make the mix sound decent on all of them, but not best on all of them. That's impossible. How I do it, is I use my tools. So I use my studio monitors, I use this space, I use the mixing headphones, the AKGs, as well as my plugins, the frequency correction software from Sonarworks, and other tools to make the mix sound as good as I can. And after I've done all that, I then take out these. I have several pairs of these earbuds. Now, some are very cheap, some are a little bit more expensive, some are from my old phones, some of them are kind of busted. So I have variety in how these sound. What I do next is I go into my Pro Tools session, I bypass the correction software, I also switch on the codec option on my Ozone plugin, which means that I am listening somewhat, of course it's not exact replica, but I'm listening somewhat to how the final mix will sound on these in a lossy MP3 format. What I do then is I listen to the mix, the full mix, with earbuds on. So let's say the episode is 1 hour long. I will listen on the earbuds, and every 15 minutes I will change to a different pair. So I listen to at least 4 different ones. And yeah, throughout the listening I will discover mistakes and errors and I correct them. But my goal is to make sure that the mix sounds good and decent on all of them. Now, in the past, what I was trying to do is I was trying to make it sound the best on all of them. So I would listen on one and sort of adjust EQs and all the tools, then switch to another pair, and everything would be upside down. That's when I realized it's impossible to mix on these, to mix for these. Hence why when I do that second listen through, I just check that the mix that I've done on the great tools with good headphones and studio monitors sound decent on different pairs. And also by listening to the mix on different pairs, I'm kind of mirroring how the listener will sort of consume that podcast, that episode, that audio. That gives me also an idea and helps me to develop my production process. One thing that I cannot do is I cannot really monitor on wireless speakers, because with Bluetooth speakers, what you would do, especially if you would work within Pro Tools, you would induce delay because of Bluetooth, as well as Bluetooth compression to sound, and it would make it very, very difficult to work in this way. I'm sure it's pretty much impossible to do it like that. So what I can do then is, after I've exported the file, if I want to, I can then check how the exported mix sounds on wireless headphones if I wanted to. But then of course I cannot correct any errors and mistakes. I'll have to go back to the session. I found that's the best way that works for me, how to take mixes efficiently. Of course, I took the inspiration from when people work in recording studios and they always had a pair of NS10s or some other speakers that would mimic consumer speakers. So they would check their mixes not only on expensive studio monitors and gear, but also on cheaper speakers where the music would eventually end up to. And it's a great habit. I think it's a great habit to always be aware of that. Always be aware of how the listener will check your podcast, will listen to your podcast, and always have the listener in mind when you work on your podcast, on your show, and try to make it the best experience that they can have. But that's it for today. I'm Mike Migas. If you enjoy the content, you can check the rest of my channel. For now, you can share, like, or subscribe, and I'll see you later.